Michelle, are you ready?
I was born ready.
She's an award-winning author, speaker, and podcast host who serves on the National Faith Advisory Council. She supported Donald J. Trump for president before it was cool, from her she shed in her beautiful backyard. This is the Michelle Moore Show.
Felt like 4 seasons of winter, and you'd give anything to feel the sun. Always reaching, always climbing, always second guessing the timing. But God has a plan, a purpose in this. You are his child, and don't you forget, he put that hunger in your heart, he put that fire in your soul. His love is the reason to keep on believing. When you feel like giving up, when you feel like giving in, his love is the reason to keep on believing. If we could pull back the curtain of heaven, we would see his hand on everything, every hour, every minute, every second. He's always been in it. Don't let a shadow of a doubt take hold. Hold on to what you already know. You put that hunger in your heart, you put that fire in your soul. His love is the reason to keep on believing. When you feel like giving up, when you feel like giving in, his love is the reason to keep on believing. It's the reason, it's the reason, his love is the reason. He's the peace in the madness that you can't explain. He's the hope in the heartbreak, the rest in the suffering. He's closer than the air you breathe, from the start to the end, to the in-between. Don't you dare doubt even for a minute what he started in you, yeah, he's gonna finish. He put that hunger in your heart, he put that fire in your soul. His love is the reason to keep on believing. Just keep on believing. When you feel like giving up, when you feel like giving in, his love is the reason to keep on believing. It's the reason, it's the reason, his love is the reason. It's the reason, it's the reason, his love is the reason. Hey!
Hi, everybody. So glad that you're with us today. Well, I'm very excited about today's show. We've got Jack Watts with us again today. Remember, he is the man who is the author of the 3 Commas Club. And boy, was that quite the interview. And of course, quite the story that he wrote about. And it was just interesting as all get out, right? And so really kind of gave us an inside peek into some horrific things that go on. We're going to talk a little bit about it today as well, but very little. If you want to see that show, which it was a doozy, you find out some things. But if you want to see what that's all about, you can also watch that show. The links to those shows are already in today's show description. And so you can go to Rumble and go to the Michelle Moore Show Rumble channel or Truth Talk America's Rumble channel. Okay, so before we bring him on, I just want to tell you tomorrow, which is Friday, today's May Day, May 1st. And so tomorrow we have Eve, our Godly Granny formulator. And so she is going to be here. We have a huge launch tomorrow. Amazing products. Gorgeous, by the way, just gorgeous. I know many of you have numerous products from Godly Granny. And I mean, they just look amazing next to each other. And so they just look great. Well, we're going to be covering the new stuff, answering questions. I've got a few things I want, which every show I do this where I'm like, Eve, we have to talk about this. I want my viewers to know this. And so we have so many things to cover tomorrow. I'm so excited about it. I had a field trip yesterday. I told you all that I was going on a field trip. I went down and went to Godly Granny and spent some time this morning. I've been up using and testing products. And so we were testing yesterday, looking at all different kinds of things. You guys won't believe all the plans that I have for you. I'm very excited. We're going to talk about all different kinds of stuff. Of course, the new things tomorrow, over 30 new products. Very excited about it. And so very impressive. Just tomorrow, what we're releasing and all the plans. So exciting. Okay, so tomorrow will be the last release before we release our Fur Baby line. Fur Baby comes next time in about a month. And so I know y'all keep asking about it. So I want you to know it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Not tomorrow, but the next time. It will be in that. And so I just keep pushing and saying, Fur Baby, we're putting Fur Baby in. So anyway, and I've been very busy at work getting ready for Mama Ganza, which is next Friday. You have to watch live in order to be able to win the gifts. I gotta tell you, I got something new for myself and it finally came in and I absolutely love it. And I found today where they have some cheaper versions that's about half the price. Oh no, we're not giving away the cheaper version. You are going to be getting exactly what I got. And so we're going to give away a couple of those and I'll explain it and show you guys. But oh my word, I love it. Love it, love it. And so we'll explain it and I'll tell you. But and it comes in 3 colors and we're going to let you pick what color even. And so, I mean, what more? What do you just need me to come and carry it around for you too? I mean, what else can I do for you? And so it's going to be great. I'm so excited. We got some really fun things that are planned for next week for Mama Ganza. And so I was sharing some of the items with my one of my sons, and he was like, Mama, that's so good. That's so creative. I love that. So he was loving some of the stuff that I'm planning on for next week, celebrating moms. And that includes cat moms and dog moms. And so all of you are invited next Friday to be here live for Mama Ganza. We will not be promoting that show externally because I don't want people to watch just because they're winning free stuff that aren't part of the Michelle family. So we want to make sure the Michelle family gets loved on. So anyways, all right. So Deborah Lynn W says, Michelle, you look so cute today. Thank you. Now, of course, Jack looks all professional, which I knew he would, because that's just who he is. But anyway, so I was teasing him. I said, look at me. I've been moving boxes and doing things because y'all, it's Godly Granny everywhere. So getting ready for all our kinds of stuff. And then Christ Believer says, you look so cute today, Michelle. Thank you. Becky Lee says, can't wait. My dresser is full of Godly Granny. And it looks beautiful together. And so anyways, thank you, Becky, for just your trust and, help it, like trusting us to help you get healthy and stay healthy. That's our mission with Godly Granny. And we're so proud of that. Just that to be able to even be thankful that and grateful that we're able to be a part of it in just that journey. And so it's so exciting. And, y'all wouldn't even believe what I've been doing today and yesterday, just testing products and everything. So things that you have no idea, we have not even whispered about that are coming. So I'm so excited. So anyways, okay. And some things are easier to bring on than others, obviously. The laundry detergent has been just a whole process, y'all. It's just a whole thing. But then we can bring on other things so much faster. So it's like, there's certain things I want right away. It just takes time. And so, but I have to be patient. And I'm definitely learning patience on some things, but then other things we get to release just right away. And so I'm so excited. Anyways, okay. Well, so tomorrow's show is going to be fun, fun, fun. We're going to also be doing something new tomorrow. I decided last time I didn't like how it worked out. So this time we're going to do it different. And I'll explain tomorrow, but it's going to be fun ways to be able to win some things. And so I've got that planned. We got all kinds of stuff. It's going to be fun tomorrow too. Of course, Eve is here with us. We always have fun and learn. So it'll be good. All right. Well, let's go on ahead and bring in our author. And he's a ghostwriter. He's such a great man. He's also a personal friend of mine. His name is Jack Watts. And so, hi, Jack. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I do have to. What'd you say, Jack?
Nice to be here.
Oh, thank you. It's great to have you. I have to say, I always love calling you because you always answer the phone.
Yeah. Well, when you write books, you're right there, and so when the phone rings, it's nice to have a distraction every once in a while. So.
All right. Well, okay. So I had an idea. So I called Jack this morning and was like, Jack, I got an idea. I want you to come on the show. And then we talk and we're talking everything. He goes, okay, well, when would you like me to come on? I go, today. And he laughed. And so I decided I had another show plan, but I was like, I want to do this and I want to do it today. I just felt an urgency about it. And I'd been thinking about it, meant to call you yesterday when I was in the car. But okay, so Jack, what the thing about you that is so interesting too is you have such a great background in so many areas from an insider perspective when it comes to, politics, even working with big ministries, as a consultant, not as an employee, which I have a question about that even. And so I just find when I talk with you, it's so fascinating because you have such a perspective and experiences in things that are such hot areas to talk about, especially right now. And so I wanted to talk with you about kind of your perspective, your inside perspective of some of this. So I want to kind of go back and talk about before we get into your work history of politics and how you ended up finding out from the inside, okay, wait a minute, now I'm part of something I don't think I would never want to be a part of, where we've had to learn it from kind of an outside perspective. And so for you, you were like sitting at the table and you were like, what now? So I'm going to have you tell that story. But first, I want people to know your education. So share a little bit about your education background.
Well, I went to the University of Georgia from growing up in Boston. And from the day that I arrived there, I was a Georgian. I said, there were so many pretty girls. I said, don't ever look for me up north again. And then after being involved with Campus Crusade for Christ for a number of years and living out in California, where I was with a group that ended up turning into a cult, I decided that I wanted to know some things for myself and not allow myself to be led by people who really misled me. Mm-hmm. So I decided, I was married at the time, had 3 young kids, but still decided I'd go back to graduate school. So I got a scholarship to go to Baylor in Texas, where I got a master's degree in church-state studies, which was kind of like religion in America and how it intersects with politics traditionally. And it was, I wrote my master's thesis on on the whole idea that in different periods of American politics, based on people's eschatology, that was what their political beliefs were. So you had times where people were post-millennial. They thought they were going to bring in, bringing in the sheep. And they thought that they were going to create, God's kingdom on earth, all kinds of things. From there, I got a scholarship with stipend to go to Emory for a PhD in international politics. And so I finished the coursework and my comprehensives. And when I just had begun to write my dissertation, I worked on a political campaign for a guy that was running for Congress. This was 1982, the second year of Ronald Reagan's, presidency. And the guy that was running for Congress, his best friend was Senator Jake Garn, the guy that went into space. Remember, he went and came back down. The only senator that's ever done that, to my knowledge.
Oh, I didn't know about it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I spent spent time at his house in Washington visiting political action committees, getting money for our campaign. And because I was there with Jake Garn, I was a stud. Here I was, this young kid. Oh, this is wonderful. And I sat, I had, lunch in the Senate dining, sat right next to Liv Ullman. the movie star from the 70s and 80s. And I mean, she was well, you don't even know who she is. And only a few of your viewers will, but she was, I mean, she was something else. And so in that, I went and visited Lee Atwater, who worked for Bush Sr., who was vice president, and then it transitioned over to Reagan. And I was in his office, and while I was sitting there, and two guys came in. I mean, they really looked like they should have been at an AA meeting.
Really?
Oh yeah, they were rough, and he introduced them. Now, this Lee Atwater is the guy the dirty trickster, one of the very first ones. He was from South Carolina, and he said, yeah, these two guys were shadowing Jimmy Carter in the 1980 campaign, and they were really proud of what they were talking about.
Okay.
And they said, well, you know, number one, they thought he was having an affair with some girl named Jennifer. So when Carter would land someplace, they would say, this is Delta Airlines, you know, calling Jennifer to meet Jimmy Carter at such and such, and just things are just kind of rattling. I'm sitting there. Then they also said that they believed that Jimmy and Rosalind were involved in a wives swapping club in Americus, Georgia. Now, I have fraternity brothers from Americus, Georgia. I don't believe that for 1 minute. I'm sitting there and I thought, this is awful. And they were proud of what they were doing. I was appalled. I didn't believe it. To this day, I don't believe. I mean, I'm not a Carter guy. I was a Reagan guy.
Sure. Okay. So when you say that they're shadowing him on the campaign trail and stuff, and just even when he became president, were they shadowing him?
Yes.
Okay. So were they part of his entourage with Jimmy Carter as insiders?
No. They worked for the opposition. They were really essentially the kind of people that Hillary got to go against Trump, and they would have loved to have been part of the Russia conspiracy hoax.
I gotcha.
These are that kind of people.
One of the things that comes to mind when I hear this story from you is I read a book from Bryce Taylor. Bryce Taylor claims that she was owned by Bob Hope. She wrote a book name, and that's her pen name, by the way. Her real name is Susan Ford, but I think she goes by the pen name because Susan Ford was the name of Ford's daughter. So, President Ford. So I think she does that because she thinks that it might be a little bit confusing. So I guess is what my perception is. Well, she wrote a book. She was a presidential model. And so meaning that from early on, she was sold into the MK Ultra program. Okay. Very, very early. And her children, and it just awful. The whole thing's just terrible to read. It was hard to go through. But in there, she talks about, what makes you a presidential model is being sent around by your handler, whether it's Kissinger or whomever that may be. And so in her case, she would be sent, and a lot of her assignments mostly were with whoever the president was at the time. And so she had a number of presidents that she, was, made to go and sleep with and whatever. And meet up with. So she claims in her book that Carter was the only one that she was, Reagan, she had numerous encounters with him and numerous other presidents, but she claims that Reagan was the only one. I mean, not Reagan, Carter was the only one that was not interested at all in doing anything like that. So that surprises me, that anybody would even think, because if anything, I've had the impression that he is the only one from books like that I've read, and nobody's come out and said. Now there's been other accountings like Kathy O'Brien, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's been on the show a number of times. She was a presidential model as well with the MK Ultra program. And she talks about, being trafficked to Reagan and different people. And so that were presidents. But none of these women have come forward claiming that I'm aware of that they were trafficked to Carter. And so they've said just the opposite. They tried. There were people that tried, because of course they want pillow talk and they get used for getting information, but then also for planting seeds of different things as well, potentially, to fulfill maybe Kissinger's plans or what Kissinger wants from somebody or whatever. So anyway, what I have read is right in line with what you're saying. I don't believe that from anything I've ever heard that Carter is anything of, taking part in any of that.
Well, a little bit later, there was another story in all of this political stuff that came out, that was the older Bush was having an affair, and that the Dukakis campaign was going to come out and accuse him of it, and the same Lee Atwater, who later got cancer and died, found out through some opposition research that Kitty Dukakis was treated for gonorrhea for being stopped by a cop in Western Massachusetts for speeding, and she had sex with him rather than get the ticket and got that. And so the two campaigns decided, let's just leave that one alone. Now, that one I was not personally involved with like I was the earlier story that I told you, but it was like, this is just so sleazy. I just didn't, even though I had all this education background and knew things, and and because actually I know a lot of the political things. That's why I have such a large following on Facebook, is because I write things on my common sense post about what's happening, and people understand. And that's my whole thing. That's what, if I can help people understand what's going on and explain it. And I know things from constitutional law. I knew international politics. I know about a lot of things. So I write about them.
So when you're doing church state studies, did you get any kind of an inkling that this is kind of the stuff that goes on, just like with the Russia collusion hoax and all that kind of stuff? Do you find out any of this stuff in college?
Well, not so much at Baylor, but when I got to Emory, because I was in that PhD program in political science, and Carter was president at the time, and his association with Emory was so intense that it was way more political than what I had at Baylor. And of course in Emory, the Harvard of the South, they just think that they're so uppity. But at any rate, it was interesting time for sure. But I dropped out of the whole program because I said I'm not going to give myself to it. And that's when I started working for a ministry called Walk Through the Bible. And in my job at Walk Through the Bible, and afterwards it became my career. I did creative work for large Christian ministries for nearly 40 years. So in so doing, I did the last mailing that Jim and Tammy Baker ever did. Did the last mailing that Norman Vincent Peale ever did. Did the only Bible project that Billy Graham ever did. Did some really interesting things. And as I got into the inner workings of that and could see what was going on, it was quite an eye opener to the point that I've written several books about what the underbelly of large Christian ministries is really like, and it's really not all that good. That is for sure. And for example, and you and I had talked about this earlier. I got on a plane at 7 a.m. in Atlanta, headed up to Charlotte North Carolina to go to PTL. Every seat on the plane was filled, and it was like, what? I sat right next to an NBC cameraman who had this huge camera between his legs, greasy guy. And I said, what are y'all going up there? I said, we're going up there for the Baker scandal. And I had just produced a spring catalog for them filled with products that had dropped that day. So I was one of the vendors who didn't get paid at first. And by the time I got to Charlotte, I was incensed. I was so angry. I walked into their communications building, and they wouldn't let reporters or anything like that in, but they let me in because I was the consultant. And I walked into the office with all of these people that I'd worked with, and they were devastated. So my anger was gone. I just tried to minister to them because they were my friends. And
well, one of the things. Oh, well, one of the things
crushed. They had given their hearts and their souls to a ministry where the head of it was doing reprehensible things for which he went to prison. Now, from what I understand, Jim Baker has done pretty well since and is not nearly as probably a decent guy now. I also worked for Chuck Colson. He was one of my clients, and he spent time in prison after the Nixon administration, and he started prison fellowship. And I want to tell you something. He was one of the most solid Christian men I ever met. Loved that guy, and he was as straight as he could be. But he got straight in jail. I think probably Jim Baker did as well.
Well, so why did he go to prison?
Colson?
Uh-huh.
He lied to Congress and the Attorney General, and he was one that said I'd run over my grandmother to get Richard Nixon reelected. And so they had he had a big cartoon in his office that said, and here he was in the car running over his grandmother. He said, I just loved it. I had to put it up. It was kind of fun.
Okay. So Jack, since you had experience in both kind of genres, so to speak, so politics and this big, religion side, right? So with the Christian ministry, big structured Christian ministries, which do you think that, obviously I'm thinking you probably got into both, thinking they're both, each one way, and find out at some point both of them are none of what you thought they were. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what was it that happened to where you finally realized that the same thing you realized with politics was the same situation with the big Christian ministry structures?
Well, obviously my experience with PTL was part of it. I also did a good bit of work up at CBN, and they had a lot of issues. And some of the publishers, it was a lot. There was a lot, but there were some decent people too, for sure.
Yeah.
I worked for Nancy Lee DeMoss for years. She's absolutely straight as an arrow. And June Hunt, I worked for her for years, and she's straight as an arrow. Norman Vincent Peale was one of the most gracious gentlemen I ever met, just a lovely man. And, the salt of the earth. Billy Graham Association, I did work for them. He was definitely a good guy. I had a lot of experience, a lot. I did it for a long, long time.
Yeah. So when you talk about working for them, is it always on a consultant situation? Were you an employee with any of these?
No.
Okay. So always a consultant. So when you were working with these consultants, as a consultant with these groups, these ministries, one of the things that you said to me, and I thought was interesting, is you said, there are so many good solid people that work for these big entities. So as I was asking you if you had followed the Joni Lamb and Daystar situation going on, since November of last year. And one of the things you were saying is it's almost sounded like you thought that it was pretty much the same in a lot of these situations where you always have these amazing people that serve. They serve a lot of times, in many cases, for decades. They make very little money or no money, and they volunteer. You have people that give money for all the right reasons, have the right heart. And then it's the people at the very top that end up taking advantage of all of that. And so
it's interesting. It's the exploitativeness of it. When you think of the 10 Commandments, and the third one, not take the Lord's name in vain, people usually think that, that's when somebody would say, God damn this, that is the third commandment. I disagree with that. What it really is when people usurp God's authority, say that they are speaking from him, and they use that to exploit them financially, morally, ethically, sexually, you name it. And once these people are wounded by them, they have this attitude that says, I didn't deserve that. Once they realize what's happening, I didn't deserve that. It shouldn't have happened. And you, God, should not have allowed that to happen to me. And so they blame God for what has happened to them rather than someone who has committed, violated the third commandment of taking God's name in vain. And when they do that, they throw away anything that has anything to do with Christianity without recognizing it. I saw it so much that I felt compelled to write a book about that, and I did. It's called Recovering from Religious Abuse. Simon & Schuster published it, so it was a big book 15 years ago. It's still out. I mean, but I created a whole program to help people take apart what happened to them and not blame God. And when you think about it, who was the person in history who was the most abused by religious leaders if it wasn't the Lord himself?
Yeah.
And
still
lied about him. They beat him.
Yeah.
Put
him on a cross
on his head, crucified him, murdered him.
Yeah.
All in the name of God, falsely, because he was God. They didn't, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
That's right.
So this, so these are the things that I've written about. And I got to the point, to be honest with you, where I said, I cannot do another brochure, another direct mail kit, another catalog, another anything, where I'm extolling the virtues of people who have no virtues. That's when I started writing books for myself, and I've never stopped, and I've written 34 so far. So,
well, let's talk about so you do this recovering from religious abuse, and so did you ever talk about it from a perspective? Because at first it sounds like you're going to talk about what the church did, what these big ministries are doing. Did you talk about it from that perspective as well, and just because sure, people are going to blame God for different things, but also a lot of the twisted thinking comes from lack of understanding and lack of education. I've been saying there's an intentional, systematic dumbing down of the body of Christ that's been going on, for decades at least. That look, I was in a church for 15 years, and it was a non-denominational church, and I look back and I think they never talked about how to have a relationship with the Holy Spirit. They never really talked about generational curses, how to denounce Freemasonry and other things from your bloodline, like how to cut that stuff off. what does it mean when we talk about what we really battle with? People think about, flesh and blood and bone and things they can see instead of the things of the spirit. They don't really explain the things of the spirit. And so you've got an entire body that is really still in grade school at best when it comes to a lot of the things that are really what's important with your walk in relationship with God. We weren't made for religion. We were made for relationship with him and with each other as well. And that was never even taught. Like not only that very basic thing, but how to have that relationship. And there at the last year or so, I would find myself being angry and irritated and knew it was coming, that was coming to an end, because what I was really leaving was I felt like I just left another Tony Robbins event or something. Not that I'd ever been to one, but it was like a motivational event. It wasn't, and of course it was, the prosperity stuff, you look back and go, wow, there was a lot of that weaved in it as well. And so it's frustrating, because a lot of it was very surface at best.
Boy, I certainly have found that to be true, and and sad. And some of the mega churches are every bit as corrupt as any of these major TV ministries and stuff. I mean, they really are. I found it interesting that you don't have nearly the number of radio ministries that you used to have, but the radio ministries seem, to be scripturally more solid than the TV shows. And some of these ministries, on the radio, do some solid teaching.
You're right. I was just listening to one yesterday when I was in the car, and you're absolutely, I hadn't thought about that, Jack, but you're absolutely right. And spirit, and they will talk about a lot of the things that you just won't hear in a church setting. And it's the stuff that actually matters.
Yes.
That's what's so scary. And so you've got,
you don't have to worry about the popularity as much as being on TV. And in a certain sense, I think that podcasts have done a great deal to replace some of the things that you don't hear on radio anymore, because people just don't turn on the radios like they once did.
Yeah, that's so true. Yesterday I was in the car, and it's the first time I've really heard the radio, and I don't even know how long. It was months, if not over a year, since I've really listened to the radio for more than 10 minutes. And so I just either don't have it on at all, or I'm listening to a podcast or a show for something, very intentional. I'm very intentional with my time. But yesterday I did listen to maybe about a handful of songs and a little bit of music as well. But I did come across a couple of different channels where they were teaching the Bible. And like you said, it was biblically sound, good, spirit-led type of deeper, more, and I hate to say advanced, it's the stuff that actually matters. And so that's what's so scary. And so that's why I said I've been adamant in saying I think it is absolutely an intentional, systematic dumbing down of the body of Christ. And so that we're not able to even fight the battles effectively. I think that and we've had Melissa Leggett on, and of course, Mark Taylor. Melissa Leggett has walked our viewers through the prayers and the different things to do with denouncing Freemasonry in your bloodline. This is something that everybody should know how to do and should be familiar with. And you never hear about it.
If you're the goal for a Christian man or woman is to be strong and solid and mature in Christ. Now, we have more people in the last 20, 25 years who have been church members than any time in American history, but we have less power. Now, at the time of the American Revolution, what percent of the population do you think were church members. What's your guess?
Well, I would have thought 30%.
5%.
Oh, wow.
But they were solid and strong. And we live in their blessing still. All of these centuries later, because they put together things that we have been able to hold on to, despite all of the politics and of destruction that has come about. They were solid.
Mm. And when you say strong, what I think a lot of Christians have been browbeat is the way to say it, really. Meek. You're supposed to be meek and quiet, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. It is a lie straight from the pit of hell.
Yes. You're supposed to be strong, supposed to be solid. You're supposed to be out there. You're supposed to stand for things.
Firm.
Not evil things. And not to say, oh, it's okay if you do this, that, and the. It isn't. It's wrong. And you've got to call right, and wrong. And there is just not much gray.
Yeah.
And we've made everything gray. Nuances of gray.
Mm-hmm.
And because people are fearful of losing their following, they embrace things that are anti-biblical, that the scriptures call sin.
Yeah.
And we just don't hear, we don't hear people talk about sin much anymore.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And I think that's part of it too, is it almost seems like the church doesn't want to hold you accountable because they might lose your tithe check.
Well, if people tithe, that's, I think that's kind of a thing of the past too. But, people give money. Yes. They don't want to lose donors. That's always a big deal.
Yeah. Okay. So have you been following the Joni Lamb and Daystar situation? Any?
Yes, some.
Okay.
I don't know any of those people personally. This,
Sure.
I've never been to Daystar, so everything that I know is just, what I've heard.
Yeah. But
all the other things that we've talked about, I was a firsthand participant in today.
Yeah.
So, so that makes it a little different. But yeah, of course. It's no different than the things that were, that were happening at PTL and some of the other ministries, and
So PTL was the ministry, for those that are watching. Jack is referring to the ministry that was led by, it was Tammy and Jim Baker.
Jim and Tammy Baker, but it was Jim Baker that was the real villain. Tammy was not. She just, she was just along for the ride, essentially. And she loved she loved being in the limelight, and she loved all the clothes and all the makeup, and a makeup artist, and having a chef, and all of the riches that came along with it. But she really was not a participant in any of the criminality.
What gets me though, Jack, is you're talking about the chef and the makeup artist and the this and the that and all of the, the luxury. And it's like, I thought people that run ministries, that it should be really the opposite. You're supposed to be, people aren't giving tithes for you to have a chef. You know what I mean?
They had a dog on set. His name was Fluffy, and Fluffy would, when they'd have the family show, Fluffy would just go and it was not a Bichon, but it was one that has all kinds of little fur, and it's a small dog and everything like that. Well, Fluffy got sick, and Jim Baker put his hands on Fluffy, prayed for Fluffy to get well. Well, Fluffy died. So instead of admitting that Fluffy died, they had a taxidermist stuff Fluffy, and they would put Fluffy one side of the couch. Then when they'd go to commercial break, they'd move Fluffy to someplace else, like Fluffy was still alive. And they did all of that to keep people from losing their faith, because Jim had prayed for this dog and the dog died. Now, when I saw Fluffy the first time, I walked into the set and I said, "What the hell's going on there?" Just like that in front of him. All the people I'm with broke down laughing. They said, I said, "That's the strangest thing I've ever seen." And one of the guys said, "A lot more strange things going on around here than that, Jack."
Okay, I have never heard of such a thing. This is so sick. It's so sick.
Yes, that was. It's a funny story,
But not.
No. What it does is it just shows that Jim Bakker was more important than God and what the scriptures would say about anything. And I don't see. I mean, they have these things, blessing of the animals and stuff. That I've never seen that in scriptures. But who am I about that one?
It's just interesting though but I want to go back to what I was saying though. And Jack, this is where I get so angry about it. And that is, it's a misuse of funds. And so we see all these people with these jets and all this money. Where's the money coming from? And even like, okay, let's just say, okay, that, like Rick Warren famously said that he gave back all the money when he had the purpose-driven life that made it so big, right? Okay. And so he gave back all the money he made for like 20 years back to the church and all this stuff. Okay. So, but as somebody who, and look, I mean, I'm all for capitalism. I'm all for that. It's all great. People work hard. It's biblical. You should, be rewarded and, and all of that as well. But and God talks about or the scripture talks about, if you don't eat, you don't work, you won't eat. And so you're supposed to work. We're supposed to earn a living, idle hands. It talks about idle hands in the Bible, all of that. So, but what gets me is these people that have these large ministries like this, like these television ministries, for example, and they live beyond lavishly. I mean, it's a whole nother level. And Jenison Franklin, I just saw, I guess it was about 2 years ago on Facebook, came across a post where his daughter got married. And they're in front of this, it looked like the Biltmore. Just next level castle. It wasn't a mansion, it was a castle with, I don't even know how many acres in the front yard, just outlandish. And you're going, gosh, is that really, what you're what I don't even understand that. You know what I mean? I just can't understand.
Here in Atlanta, that one of the big mega ministries, this is probably 15 or 20 years ago, Creflo Dollar wanted his congregation to buy him a $63 million jet so that he could bring food to the poor. I thought, you buy a lot of food with $63 million.
Yeah.
It's just that the mentality that something like that would be godly strikes me as being,
crazy.
It's a perversion of the truth. And,
yes.
And this is, and they're not accountable.
No. Well, it makes me think back to when, I said I went to the church for 15 years and you start thinking about it and you're going, we never saw a balance sheet. We never saw where the money was going. Who was accounting for that and overseeing that other than the pastor and, the pastor's wife maybe. And so it makes you think back to things and consider, what all was going on exactly. And so, but again, these are supposed to be people that love people. And how can they live? I mean, it's been years since I saw the interview that, what's the guy out of Houston? What's his name with the curly hair? And, producer Ron, what's his name? The big pastor, not Olson.
Olsen.
Yeah, Osteen.
Osteen.
Yeah,
Joel
Osteen. Thank you, producer
We're
Ron.
getting old that we can't remember those things just
I
right
know.
off the bat.
So Joel Osteen lives in, like, I don't know, 15,000 square foot mansion. And he's got, the basketball goal and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, I don't care that maybe it didn't come from people's tithe money and it just came from his book sales that, we find out is a whole nother deal a lot of times, but a lot of times that stuff's rigged. But that he's taking the people's tithe money and buying tens of thousands of books, or they put them in the front of the church and give them out and all that. But it got paid for by the tithe money a lot of times. Yeah. And so that way he could be on the bestseller list, the New York Times bestseller list. And a lot of this stuff gets rigged.
Well,
but anyways.
In the Christian publishing industry, that's kind of the key, is what will the buyback be from one of these major pastors? And, when I did work for Thomas Nelson, which was one of my big accounts, they always would require at least a 5,000 or 10,000 book buyback from the
pastor
writing the books and stuff. And,
so what does that mean, Jack? So what does that mean? Is that saying that if they print 10,000 books and they don't sell and they get hung on them with the bookstores, that then that pastor or that author has to buy those books back?
No, the pastor has to buy those books up front.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say that the book costs $3 to print and it's 10,000. That's $30,000. That covers the cost of those 10,000 books, and another 10,000 that would go into bookstores, so that the publisher would be cash flush and making money no matter whether the book sold or not. So that would be the thing there. So and it gave great incentive for these pastors to sell the book at when they would go on their on the air. Or they would be a guest on a show like this. They'd hold up their book and say, well, all of y'all need my new book, because it's the thing, and they go into it like that. And that's how they would get rid of those 10,000 books. Or if they didn't, they would be in the basement and they would give them away at different things.
Yeah. Okay. And so that's why you had to go to Joe Osteen's, .com website to buy it. He was really getting his money back that he paid to the publisher up front with the book buyback.
Well, he's become so big that instead of using a publisher, he publishes his books, or probably does. And that means that instead of getting 15% on a book that sells in a bookstore, he's selling it and he's getting 100%, and the cost of the book is 20. So his gross margin is 80%.
Way higher. Yeah. Works. I've made way more money on the book I self-published versus the one I had the publishing deal on. I've literally made pennies on a book, and now we just give them away. But we give them away because that's what, I felt like the Holy Spirit led me to do. But what they're doing and that's all good. That's fine. That's just good business on the publishing, company's books. And, Thomas Nelson is in business to make money.
Yes.
But where my comment is, there's two parts I have a problem with potentially. The first thing is, are you using the tithe money of your congregation to buy these books? I want to know where that money's coming from. And then the second thing is, why do you need to live or choose to live? It just makes me think about a person's heart. I'm not saying that there's anything evil about living in a 14,000 square foot home, whatever, but my question is, when you say that you supposedly claim that you care about the people and the starving and all of that, I think at some point I just don't understand and start to think, I'm not sure that I'm believing this. And what if you can do that? And it's like the $68 million, $63 million for the jet. It's that same principle. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. as far as a 14,000 square foot home, you're not talking about Osteen, I don't believe. I think his is closer to 40,000 square feet. I mean, it's like something that's as big as 10 Downing Street.
Oh, geez. It's despicable. I mean, we're laughing, but yet it's not really funny. But I have to laugh sometimes because it's so maddening, and JB, what is this? So Joanna G17 said, so the best-selling books on the New York Times are really manipulated by the publishers and the authors themselves. Yes, honey. Yes.
Yeah.
And then Christ, in fact, I've spoken with Mark Taylor about this on the show some, because this has come out with a lot of these big pastors. And what's unclear is where's the money coming from? And I got a bad feeling that it's coming from church tithing. And that's what I'm worried about. Christ Believer says those pastors didn't give to their congregation or helping people financially. Michelle gives all the time, and God continues to bless her with more and more, which she turns around and gives again. Yes, thank you, Christ Believer. And that's, I think, why I don't relate. That's what I'm having the hard time with, Christ Believer. That's why I'm recognizing that. The heart, I used to say to my clients that I used to coach real estate agents and other business owners and professionals, whether they were mortgage brokers and different business owners. And Jack, one of the first things I would tell people, call one, no matter what industry they were in. I would say, look, I can coach you and teach you for a lot of things with your business. I mean, just about anything, especially within real estate. But here's the one thing I can't. I cannot coach you or teach you how to care about people. You either do or you don't. And either way, the people, your customers, your clients, whomever, they're going to know the truth. You can't fake it. And so you either care or you don't. And I can't teach you how to. You either do or you don't. And you're not going to fake it for very long if you try to fake it. And so, because it's in everything. It's in everything. I could give you 5 examples today of things that I've done in a week that would be an example of how much I care, if that makes sense. And it's just in who I am. And it's the same, I'm sure, with you, and the level of things and the quality of your writing and what you do, just knowing you. And it's like, it comes in, it shows, you know what I mean? And everything that we do. And so that's what I'm just having a hard time with this. And I'm just not buying it.
Yeah. Well, if your Christianity is never about using people, it's always about serving people. If you are using someone else and you're using God's name, you are taking God's name in vain.
Okay, see, you're teaching this lesson, and it's such a good way to think about this that you brought up earlier, and now you're getting to pull it right back into this. Yesterday when I was in the car, I had a lot of thinking to do. And when I was supposed to be calling you. And so I planned on calling you yesterday. But the thing is, Jack, I was remembering a word that the Lord gave me earlier this year. And I was just pondering about it. And what he said to me was, he said, when you serve my children, when you serve the people, when you serve my children, he said, you're serving me. When you do that, you serve me. In other words, take care of my children, and you are serving me. And it was like I was seeing them as separate, and I didn't even realize I was seeing them as separate. It's like, okay, I got to do what God's calling me to do over here. Oh, I'm gonna take care of these people over here, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm doing that, and I got to order this, and want to make sure that's ready. But then I was somehow seeing them separate, and the Holy Spirit, revealed that to me. And obviously, I know that God knew that better than I did, that I was even doing it, because it made me step back and realize that I was seeing it separate. Didn't even realize I was. And so, that is, you're absolutely right. It is about being a servant. In fact, I was asked to speak. I was a contributing author to a book, and it was a women's edition for successful women in Nashville, Tennessee. And I think I ended up being chapter 1 of the book. But what I talked about was leadership, and I talked about the highest level of leadership is servant leadership. When I ran Keller Williams Nashville, I remember I would, had over 100 and something agents and full staff and everything. But I remember anytime an agent would come in my office, I would say, how can I help you meet your goals today? That's the verbiage of a servant leader. Because I recognized everybody. I had 100 and something agents, and let me tell you, a lot of them had very different goals than other ones. And I knew that. I got to know the agents and knew kind of what their situations were one way or another. And so I had, like one lady who had twins, a young little boy and girl who now are getting ready to graduate high school. But she just wanted to make $60,000 a year and said that could help her be at home and her husband make the rest of the money that was needed to keep them living the lifestyle that they wanted to live. Okay. But then I also had other agents that would come in my office, young guys, that they wanted to tear it up. They wanted to just sell more real estate than anybody in Nashville. Some just wanted to sell more than everybody else in the office, so everybody had different goals. And so I recognized that. And that's why I would say that specifically. How can I help you meet your goals today? How can I help you? And so I recognized some people just wanted to be able to pay their rent and, and have a little bit of money to be able to go out to eat. And so I can't want something for them, and so that their problems and the solutions to their problems are going to maybe be adjusted based on what they want, what their goals are. And so we have to remember that. And Jack, it just was, and that's why I say, that's the servant in me. And that's what makes me angry and frustrated with these big churches. I mean, you look at TD Jakes. I mean, I'm sitting in pink linen shorts and a ball cap today, and I can serve the people and I'm doing this because I've been serving the people if they only knew what all I'm doing today. But it's like, oh my goodness, I can serve them just as well this way as if I'm sitting in a store, standing in a suit that would, cost $3,000. You know what I mean? I mean, TD Jakes, every time you see him, I just shudder at the thought of how much his wardrobe costs, and so it kind of makes me angry a lot of times. I'm very frustrated because I just don't see that attitude from the people that are so trusted by so many. And yeah, many people have woken up now to what's really going on, but it's just frustrating. I'm not saying that pastors should live in a shack, but I also don't agree they should live in a 20 or 30,000 square foot, compound. It's past mansion. It's a compound. That's where I get frustrated.
Well, the other component part of this is that all of these major leaders have little sycophants running around validating every single thing they do, and which feeds the narcissism so that they come to believe that they're doing the right thing when they're doing exactly the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Monday with
nobody is willing to say, no, you're wrong. This isn't,
biblical.
No, correct.
It's not God's work. This isn't God's work, And
they overlook things, and it's like, what would get an underling fired is completely excused in the leader, including affairs, pedophilia, evil things. Yeah. And they are overlooked by the people, many of them, that kind of second tier that kind of aspires to be the main kind of guy and the leader's number one lieutenant. But these are people, they're like loyal to the Godfather. Do anything that the Godfather says, and these major Christian leaders act as such, and they do terrible things to people in the name of God.
Well, that just happened yesterday. I was planning on we'll play the video on Monday with Mark Taylor. But Jack, I literally just watched something last night. A viewer had sent to me, and it is an accounting of a woman who was giving to the Daystar Ministry. This goes back to the Joni Lamb and her son. I think his name's Jonathan. And so this, this has been going on since November of last year, all this drama. Well, somebody had been tithing. A lady had been tithing, And it was for something like 27, 28 years or something, just crazy. And now it's become public that she's asked for her money back. And she has said, and she wrote, not in a rant or whatever, she wrote in a logical, laid out letter. And her response from that she received back from Daystar, not from Joni, but from somebody there that had some position that responded back, started to talk about Jonathan. And it was really just a character assassination of Jonathan, and never addressed the things that she laid out in the letter. And so never addressed them, apologized for them, or rebutted them and explained it, anything like that. It was a character assassination of Joni Lamb's own son to protect the lifestyle and all of that that's going on and whatever corruption. And I just was like, and that's why it's getting this letter and this situation is getting so much attention. I believe is because it's the epitome of what's going on, what you just explained about the cover up. And so it's interesting to see, we know that Joni Lamb had gotten, or Daystar had gotten, some millions of dollars. It was quite a few millions during the whole COVID thing. And so they got relief money. And then shortly after, she supposedly had gotten a new plane. And she's, of course, since her husband's died, she's bought a number of homes and this and that. And so there's a lot of questionable stuff going on. I mean, how many, and I guess I just, I think to myself, well, how many homes does a person need? First of all, how many mansions or large homes? I don't know, but whatever, it's her money. But again, that goes back to the heart of somebody, and that is supposed to be the leader of one of the most influential and largest ministries here, television ministries in the world.
Yeah.
And this is the way she lives. And I just think about the heart. And this is something Di Laughing said. She said, when it comes to mega preachers, watch what they do, not what they say. 40,000 square feet is way more than any one man needs. Even if, he is gluttonous and prideful, #Satan. Okay, Di Laughing, that's what I'm saying. Even if you had 5 kids, okay? I remember when my kids were little, okay? And personal story, got my dream home and had worked very hard, get this house. We got 2 kids and a dog, and my husband and myself. And we have 3.5 bathrooms. It's 3,700 square feet-ish. And 1 month into that, I started realizing, boy, you really got to be careful what you pray for, because I didn't realize that
taking care of that stuff.
Yeah. This house might be just a little bit too much for me. Do we really need this much? And we used to run and have all kinds of Nerf wars in the house and hide and seek and all that. But you can have, talk about one man, Die Laughing. I'm talking about a whole family of 5 or 6. You don't need more square footage than that, period. 3,700 square feet was more than I could clean. And so does that make sense? So that's where my problem is. It's like, even if they did it from book sales, even if that happened, they earned the money and all of that, Michelle, and they can do with their money what they want. And I know all that, but it goes back to what Die Laughing says. It's about the heart. It's about, you know what I'm saying? This is supposed to be somebody who's supposed to be serving and loving the people and preaching and being, over the flock. And that's where my problem is. I just think it's so dirty and icky. That's just all I can say. So
that's why I've written about it. Literally books about it to help people that are just crushed because they've given their lives to some of these ministries. And, we probably ought to just say that this is the top 1% of ministries, because you get down there are a lot of people that are just doing exactly the right thing.
That's right.
Little small churches, and they're just doing everything they can to make a living. A lot of these pastors have to have second jobs in order to feed their families, and they're doing it because that's what God told them to do. But we're talking about the uber elite and what they do to take God's name in vain, destroying people in their narcissistic desire to build their own kingdom calling it's God's kingdom, but there's almost no connection. There's some, because that's what keeps people in there and keeps them going. And but what's happening underneath is not honorable. It's not ethical. It's not moral. It's not righteous. It's, and it really kind of skirts criminality.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Well,
certainly when it
because
comes to having sex with minors and stuff like that, which happens quite a
wow.
bit.
Okay, so let me ask you about this. I mean, I would think that it would be potentially like we were talking about with the criminality part of it, because you've got people who, in fact, I heard about this. I think we're covering this Monday, because it even got addressed in one of the videos that I watched. And I've got 2 videos that I'm planning on covering with Lieutenant Mark Taylor on Monday already. And one of them talked about when you are donating to a 501c3, okay, that there are some parts and points that cover about almost like fraud, and it's like, what would substantiate you getting your money back? And so, because there was an understanding, and so there was something to that last night. I forgot about that till just now, and so we'll be covering that on Monday, I'm sure. But there's so much that is going on with all of this, and people are really waking up to it. It's very interesting. Alcom says, I left a non-denominational church when they hounded everyone or every week for money to build a bigger church. When there were open seats at service every time that I went. Wow. Cousadoo said bigger house, a whole lot of cleaning. I know, girl. That's what happened. I was like, oh yeah, I'm not liking this. Okay, the next time I'm gonna pray that I have the money for a housekeeper for this house, which I wouldn't do, but yeah.
I think that woman that has been tithing to Daystar will get her money back about the time that MSNBC says something nice about President Trump.
Exactly. You know what? I'm right there with you. Justice 7777 said, but preachers are to be the leaders, show by example, help the homeless, the poor in various ways. Exactly. And maybe they are. Maybe they're doing good and still being able to afford a 40,000 square foot. I mean, it's just like with the jet. If you'll buy the $63 million jet, I'll go and feed the poor. I don't know. I mean, I just think it's absolutely insane.
Does that justify a $63 million expenditure? I would say no. On and that even somebody would come up with the idea of doing that shows the depth of the problem of the narcissism that is operational in a ministry like that. Just by the way, a narcissist, I question whether they can actually be a believer. I have to think about that one. I'm not saying no, but I question it a little bit.
Well, they claim that I know some that claim to, but then when you listen to them, they're really off. I've had narcissists tell me they read their Bible and they don't.
And Satan reads the Bible.
Oh, and believes in God.
And believes in God. He just believes he's better than God. Narcissists also believe they're better than God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Simply Sylvia says, believe it or not, I was bamboozled by a ministry that gave to others all the time. They still turned out to be corrupt. Wow. Wow. Yeah. I mean, who knows? It's just, that's why I'm saying maybe they are doing good. Maybe Joel Osteen's living in his big mansion and, with his basketball court and whatever. And, I just question the heart of it, just the whole thing. I just can't imagine myself sitting, and I guess that's the point. For myself, I think, well, I couldn't sit in a house like that and there be people starving and needing a home. And, I just am so preoccupied, especially knowing how much need there is and lack.
This is, by the way, part of the basis of why there was a Reformation. Just the opulence of the Catholic Church at the time, and the Pope, who was the servant of all but was carried by people on a pallet everywhere he went. That's not serving.
No.
That, being better than. It's we actually may need another reformation, to be honest with you. I mean,
I believe it.
Yeah, there's something that has to dramatically change. And these evil people must be called out by name.
And who's going to do it?
Last one of them.
And it's the church that has got to do it, the body. And so that's what goes back to, we're not to be meek. We're not to just let people step on us and railroad us. The body of Christ is to be firm and to call evil, evil, like you said, and to call good, good. It is what it is.
Well,
and so, but who's going to do it if we don't?
We've done some of it today. This is the kind of thing that stirs people, and they start thinking, I don't like the way such and such happened. It struck me as wrong. And what they end up doing is they just kind of dismiss it and let it slide. You can't do that. You've got, these things have to be, politically, this is exactly what President Trump is doing right now with Doge and all the rest of it, getting rid of the corruption, putting us on a new footing so that we can thrive.
Well, there has to be a reformation within the politics, because the politics
is happening right now. This is happening right now.
That's right.
And it needs to happen in the church, in the body of Christ. It absolutely needs to happen.
But see, with the body of Christ, this is the point I want to make about the difference between the body of Christ and politics and what Trump is doing. Okay, so the body of Christ it's really for the believers. The Reformation in the church is one thing, but what the political system does, we're all caught up in the political system, whether we want to be part of it or not, we want to acknowledge it or not, or be informed or give it a minute of our time. We are caught up in that. So his whole realm of who he reaches is all of us. He's really has the opportunity to reform an entire system that we are slaves in, and he can set us free, is what I believe. And so from some of that with the IRS, by doing the External Revenue Service and some of the things that I believe he's really doing the groundwork to, and we'll see what ends up happening in the next couple of months or few months. But, he's saying that the money for the External Revenue Service, which is your tariff system, I think, look, it may even get worse than before it gets better. It may be another year before we really see some relief here. Did you hear about, so I want to talk to you about a couple of current political things that are going on. I wanted to get your feedback on. So did you hear about what happened that Biden and Harris did right prior, well, I guess while they were running, she was running for president. And so they drained our reserves, our oil reserves. Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
And they drained it at such a rate that it did damage to two of the facilities that they can't even put back the reserves right now because it's so damaged. They're having to repair those. And then the other two facilities, they're able to put some of the reserves back, but it is taking so much time. And they did all that. They drained it so fast and so much, apparently, because they were trying to drive gas prices down so that it would make Biden and Harris look good to help her get elected. But they did some dramatic, extensive damage to two of the facilities.
That's a strategic reserve that is to be used for tanks and trucks and jets to defend the United States against attack. You need to have that amount of the thing that really cost the Wehrmacht the Second World War is they lost their ability to get gasoline to fuel their trucks and tanks. They didn't have enough to fight the war, and the Allies did. So it's the same thing. They did this to keep gas prices low so that it looked like they were doing a good job. Made the United States vulnerable to attack because they didn't care.
Yeah. And on top of that, did extensive damage. So now we're having to fix those for 2 of the 4 facilities so that we can't even refill those right now. We're not even working on refilling them. They're so extensively damaged that we can't even put any of it back. We have to leave it alone because the repairs are happening and they have to be complete first. And it will be years to put them back, by the way, years. So that's something that's going on. The other thing is it seems like we had a win. Maybe I would call it a win. I'm not sure. We're going to see how this shakes out. But the judge that got suspended, I don't know why she's not, I don't understand. I mean, it was a liberal body that suspended her. So that's promising. But this judge that tried to help the illegal immigrant.
Talking about Dugan.
Mm-hmm. I don't know the woman's name. Was it Dugan? And so
Hannah.
the judge. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So
lady.
What'd you say?
Not a very pretty lady.
But she went after ICE, and it was so funny. And so, I'm trying not to comment.
Yes, I do. I figured that one out.
And you keep on laughing.
I was just trying to define her, and Wisconsin, the judge from Wisconsin.
Yes. Okay. Now
let the guy out the back door.
Yes. Okay. And went after ICE and all that. Okay. Now here's my concern. Okay. So she's been suspended. Why has she not? Can you not be fired as a judge? Who could that entity not? I guess they're having to wait to see how this plays out in the courts. I don't know. But, I'm so tired of people being relieved from their positions and not being perp walked to the jailhouse personally. This woman broke the law, and I think it's even more egregious than maybe your typical person that would break the law, because she's one of the people that is actually entrusted to uphold the law. And so not good.
She was perp walked by the FBI. They handcuffed her while she was in her robes, took her to the car, and took her to jail. Now they booked her and they released her. So they released her on bail or maybe even her own recognizance. She's not a flight risk, but there are charges against her,
and she is suspended.
Yes, and she's suspended, probably with pay, because that's the way they do stuff like that. You and I wouldn't get pay, but she will, but that's her situation is not. I mean, she's obstructed justice, and she's a federal crime, and they are not going to give her a slap on the wrist. They're going to try and do something to make an example out of her, which they should.
Oh, absolutely. It is so far past due. It's crazy how far past due we are for this. And so this will be a win. And I'm glad to hear this about the perp walk. And that makes sense because she has the charges brought against her. And what she did, she should go to prison. And I hate to say made an example of, but yet, made an example of. Historically speaking, we've had people that were hung for treason for a whole lot less than a lot of these people are getting away with today. So I say we got to bring that back. So viewer Natalie says the last church that I was a member of would have building fundraisers for a new building. The church would get some cosmetic upgrades and the pastor would have a new huge house. Oh, geez. Oh, wow. Y'all, it just blows my mind. Okay, so Justice 7777 says $68 million, their communities would have no homeless or homeless shelters. Seniors wouldn't have to make a decision on whether to eat that week or get their prescriptions. Great point. Justice 7777 says, Michelle, totally agree. She was shown in handcuffs, but she should immediately be behind bars. But because she's not the flight risk, I can see where they're, and you're right. Did you hear about the lady who was part of the whole election fraud down in Georgia and how she was paid for a year? And then now all of a sudden, I guess I forget, they found her guilty or whatever. She's lost her job. And it's like, okay, why isn't she in prison? And so did you hear about this? This is a recent thing where the woman got got found guilty of, like, they did a review, whomever. And so she lost her job, but there's nothing else that's being said about it. And so nobody is really being held accountable so far openly against 2020. And I have said over and over, I think we have 4 things. It's Epstein, it's the shots, it's the election. What's the 4th thing that, the shots? There's 4 things I say in order to move forward, we have to address.
You know,
I forget.
in the you were talking here about what's happened in Fulton County. Fannie Willis, the DA, Nathan Wade, who was her lover,
Yes,
is a friend of mine. I played basketball with him at the Y for 20 years. He's a great basketball player. But always nearly getting in fights. I had to keep him out of fights with people all the time. But a tremendous basketball player. His nickname was Tiny, but he wasn't tiny. It's kind of interesting. I just have all these little things that have happened. But he was a really good basketball player and a decent guy. He just got himself involved with something, and his life will never be the same. Hopefully, she's the one that needs to go to prison.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Now, wait a minute now, Jack. So the judge, what's the judge's name that's now suspended?
Hannah Dugan.
We need to probably call her Pretty Woman.
One of your people say that on the thing and you pulled it off?
No, I came up with that when you said Tiny. I was like, oh, I see how this is going. You call the big guy Tiny. I've got the irony nicknames. I know about that. But yeah. Die Laughing says, we are still feather boa flogging from the Obama era. Now that we are in the Trump era, let's get to the hanging. Here's the thing. I just want accountability. I just want justice. And look, you cannot move forward without justice, period. Right. We have to have and that's just you want a society that thrives, you have to have justice.
Yeah.
You want a safe community for your kids and want to be left alone, you got to have justice. You have to have accountability. And that comes with justice.
Well, the reason that the Democrats are being so supportive of Tren de Agua and MS-13 criminals is because if they make it hard for us to just get rid of the worst, by the time we do get rid of them, and we will, and we get to just average people who came across illegally but aren't criminals, they will think we are so fatigued that we will allow them to stay. And that's their end goal, because if we allow them to stay, the numbers are so great that they will, in cities like Los Angeles and Chicago, and all, that there will be an added 10 to 20 congressional seats that will get people like AOC in there, and that's how and that's their goal, to destroy the country.
Okay, I thought you were going to say that once we got these hardened criminals, then we would start looking at the ones that are doing all of this kind of stuff, and that are Americans that are, I'm not one to say Democrats and Republicans, because I don't really necessarily prescribe to that. I personally, and just from everything, I don't really believe there's much difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. I think that a lot of that is all, theater. And so I think it's a lot of them they're all in on it in a lot of ways, because it's so corrupt, it's so nasty, it's so ugly. And so in so many ways. And Trump was the insider, the outsider who is trying to work within a system. And so we'll see how all this plays out. I know what it's like to not be part of a group and see and experience how they will come after you, and they will absolutely slander you, lie about you, and pull every fast trick in the book. And so I can only imagine what he deals with. Just crazy. I can't really imagine. And at the level that he's dealing with, what he's got to do, it's really opened my eyes. The last 2.5 years of doing even just the Michelle Moore Show has really opened my eyes. And I've pondered and thought a lot about what in the world they pull on him. And so we can't even, fathom really. And you've really given us a great example even today, talking about Carter and what they did. And so even with him, I mean, you're just talking about some sick, reprobate minds,
And Rosalind,
Yeah.
that should be involved in a wife swapping club. I mean, it's nonsense. And and such malice and bearing false witness. Well, that's one of the 10 commandments also. When you bear false witness, you destroy people, and they cannot get their reputations back. This is, they're in guilt in people's minds, and it's a bad thing.
That's right. Deborah Lynn W. said people found guilty of election fraud should be arrested. Well, think about this. While they were doing the investigation or whatever into this, she was on paid leave. She should not only be arrested, she should be made to pay the money back. And so
and that's 4 years. Paid for 4 years because that was the 2020 election.
I know. See, that's what I don't know. That's what I wondered. And Deborah Lynn,
that's a lot of money.
I know, but I was a little bit unsure about that because they made it sound like it was just a year over the last year. And so I was like, that doesn't sound right. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. Maybe it was just recently the last year brought forward and of her role in it. I don't know but it was a woman that was in Atlanta. But she said,
the election that they're talking about was 2020.
Well, you would think that's what I thought, but a year ago, you're talking more like maybe they mean, I don't know, because it doesn't sound right, because I thought the same thing. I was like, a year ago wouldn't have even been last year when Trump got reelected. So,
right.
The other part of what Deborah Lynn W. said is I saw a headline where some illegal aliens were arrested and found guilty of voting in the 2024 election. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. J6. Thank you. Jewish Girl Knows. J6. We got to get to the bottom of J6. So it's Epstein, the shots, the election, and J6. Thank you, Jewish Girl. You got it. That's exactly what I've been saying for a few weeks now. You want to move forward? You want to have times for the best times of our country and all of that? Great. Let's talk about the Epstein list. Let's talk about J6. Let's talk about 2020 and how it got stolen from Trump. And let's get this crap about the shots straightened out. And I'm fixing to add a fifth thing, and it's the geoengineering, the chemtrails. So that's another thing. We're not going to be able to move forward. Too many people are waking up to that. And at some point, it's going to get to a point where we can't move forward until that crap gets taken care of too.
When I wrote that book, the 3 Commas Club, the reason that the woman that had this experience wanted to stop it was because Epstein she felt he was murdered, which I do too. But in the investigation about it, one of the things that didn't come out to the public that I learned just based on my research about what I was doing was those 2 guards that fell asleep on the job. There was gas put in, when you go to the dentist and they give you,
nitrogen.
Gas, yes. That was piped in to where they were sitting so they would fall asleep because they were put to sleep. So it wasn't that they were negligent, and the only outside agencies that could do that would be either the FBI, the CIA, or MI6. And the MI6 to, at the time to shield Prince Andrew, who, has subsequently been, outed.
Yeah, that's a good point. What are your thoughts about Kash Patel, saying all these comments about the CIA or the FBI, oh, I'm going to shut the doors of the FBI my first day. And then he gets put in that position, and now we're, weeks later, or months late. I guess he's been 6 weeks or so he's been in this position. I don't know. Because I don't think he was appointed. Was he appointed immediately after Trump? It seems like it was a minute after. So it was a minute. And so not like 60 seconds, but it was a bit. But, it certainly hasn't been the first day. He hasn't shut it down. So what are your thoughts about that, Jack?
Well, not shut it down as in not have an FBI anymore, but to purge it of the people who are
no good.
No good.
Yeah.
And I think that he's probably a pretty solid leader, and he's going to but there's a lot of them. I mean, the FBI has been fully corrupted, all from before Comey all the way, Mueller. Boy, I think you probably have to go back to the 90s. Well, actually, no, you'd have to go back to not far after 9/11, because that's when the counterterrorism was given to the FBI, and not just going after criminals, and that going after things that terrorism is much more sexy than going after somebody that robs banks. So that the FBI has just really gravitated towards that, and in so doing, they've had political appointees that that are woke and DEI and all the rest of it. And Padel's got his hands full doing that, and so does Kristi Noem and
Pam Bondi.
Pam Bondi. Boy, that on my post when I put things on Facebook, and it says, well, that they've made a criminal referral. That, well, where's there an arrest? And people just don't know that a referral means that you have to have a grand jury hear evidence and bring an indictment, and before you can do that, you have to gather the evidence. And if you're
Process.
The government, you've got to these things take time. Now, once they start coming, they'll probably start coming pretty fast. But I do believe that there is a commitment to go after some of these people, and they should. And honestly, I think that you were talking about the Democrats and Republicans are two peas in a pod. I think there are some really, really good Republican people, not many Democrats. I don't know any, to be honest with you. But, like Mitch McConnell is voting against Trump, everything. I think that he's just mad that he's not going to be able to get away with all of the stuff that he's done over the years, and that he's going to have his comeuppance. That's what I think. I don't know that. I mean, almost everything I've said here, I know. But this is just my speculation, so I'll put that in there.
So how does he get a comeuppance when he has served so many years? I mean, is justice even, obtainable with him?
He's worth $90 million. A forensic accounting of how he got that $90 million, which would probably take a good while to do since it was over so many years, will indicate all of the corruption that he's been involved in. That's what I believe.
So is there any kind of a forensic investigation into his income or his wealth already?
That's a good question. You know who would know that?
Who?
Kash Patel.
Yeah. I'm just wondering,
And you know what? He's not saying anything. When he'll say something? After he gives it to Pam Bondi, and there's an indictment from the Department of Justice. That's how that works. And we have so many Christians who don't really know much about systematic theology. We have a whole lot of Americans who don't know much about how the United States works.
That's right. That is so true. In fact, I think most couldn't even tell you the three branches of government. I mean, they really, it's very very elementary. It goes back, though. I think it is really, truly another one of those intentional, systematic dumbing down, not just of the body of Christ, but of the American body in general, you know. And so we know that. We know, I mean, look at the Common Core by Bill Gates, you know. So so we know that. Well, we didn't get through half of our list of all my questions for you today, so we have to come back. But Jack, I appreciate you coming today. Oh, thank you. We'll have you come back because I know that you've got a recent book too that just sounded so interesting and riveting. Great test, a great covering of somebody's life that I wanted to talk about as well. And we'll have you come back and we'll cover some more current topics and different events. I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. I think that it's so always anybody who's been on the inside of any of these structures just brings such an insight. You know, sometimes we just have suspicions or we say, well, this is what this looks like from the outside. And then when you can come in and say, oh yeah, they were belligerent, they look like alcoholics. And, you know, you could just they had that way about them.
Well, can I say the title of the book?
Oh, sure. Yes.
It's an American Hero.
Mm-hmm.
There's the cover. It says written by Tom Davis with Jack Watts. Whenever you see a book in a bookstore and it says with, the person that is with is the one that actually wrote it. And this is a great story. It made a great Father's Day book, and it goes into some really interesting things. And that's all I'll say about it. But I had to get that in.
You know, you make a great point. That would be interesting for Father's Day. We'll have to see about Tom coming on with you, and we might do something like that. I'll call you and we'll talk about it. But yeah, he's got a very interesting story, very riveting, and especially because of the way that his life has ended up, it just became even more interesting for him to be so uber successful. Yes. You know, it's literally, you know, from the orphanage to multi-millionaire. So
the whole idea is that, you know, there's white privilege. Well, you know, the hero was raised in an orphanage with his brothers, and you know, without any parents, had to shine shoes in order to survive during the Depression. You know, went into the Army as a buck private and ended up being a first lieutenant by the end of World War II, fighting in Patton's Third Army in the Battle of the Bulge, you know, and had nothing. Married a girl because he said he was going to have a family like he never had before, and wanted to be the kind of dad that he always was. And his son, who, you know, made hundreds of millions of dollars, said, I want to honor my dad by writing this book.
That's awesome. It's awesome. You know,
and he paid me well to write it for him.
Well, that's awesome. I think that's so great. And we'll have you back so we can talk a little bit more about that, and that, you know, just that whole journey. That's just amazing. And Father's Day coming up, that'll be a good story to tell. Great. All right, Jack. Appreciate you, honey.
You too. Bye-bye.
I love it. I love sharing my friends with you guys. I was thinking yesterday, you know, I never want to be the smartest person in the room. So that way we've got all these great friends that I learned from, and people that I get to be around. And, you know, so if I'm not talking with Eve and learning something from her, I'm talking to Jack, learning something from him, and just all the different people. I'm a learner. They say leaders are learners, and I'm just a learner. KM Sunshine 1974 said, unfortunately, there is a lot of corruption at the state and local governments, and there is so many people in school boards that are taking PAC monies, so much bickering from nothing sides of the aisle. I guess no sides of the aisle. Yeah, I mean, look, absolutely, I agree. It seems like a lot of these school boards are getting crazy too. More and more stories are being told that it's scary crazy. We just shared a video, I think it was Tuesday, about the lady in Florida. California. And she was saying, get your kids out of the public schools. Remember that? And so if you didn't see Tuesday's show, you should go back and see it. It was really good. And one of the things that we talked about was we played that woman's video showing you. Remember with Mark Taylor, how we've been talking about the Islamic centers that are throughout, and we just showed another video on Monday that, remember, you zoom in, and it was a city in, was it Houston? I think it was either Houston or Dallas. And it showed all these, the map just pops up all these Islamic centers all around that area. Well, take a look. This is a woman who's a patriot. Producer Ron says it was Dallas. And I think we had a viewer who commented, and I read it out loud, where it talked about that they said you should see Houston. So apparently Houston, Texas is also quite infiltrated with this whole situation with the Islamic centers. Well, look at, we've been talking about this for a minute now. We talked about the Epic Center or Epic City. I forget what it's called, but we've talked about it a few times on Mondays with Mark also. And so we've been covering this, and it's been for a minute now. Well, now this video has come out, and our, I think it was Kazadu77 tagged me in it. And so let's take a look here. Let's see what she has to say.
I don't know what's going on in Texas, but the White House, the current administration, President Trump, J.D. Vance, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, y'all need to get down to Texas. Something's happening down in Texas where they, along with the Epic City that the Muslim Brotherhood, it was trying to pass in Texas. Now they're doing boycotts, and not even boycotts. They're doing protests and different things down in Texas, and they're trying to pass Sharia law down in Texas. We're not having that. We Americans. This is FAFO country. We're not having this Sharia law in the United States of America. Trump, President, I need you to get up on this. I need y'all to, I need this video to go viral. I need y'all to send this all around. We need to stand up as Americans. We will not have Sharia law up in this country. We're not going to have that. You're not marrying those 6-year-olds. You're not going around raping and beating and torturing women, especially Christian women. We're not playing that up in America. Not today. Not today. You know what? It's time to practice our Second Amendments. If you ain't armed up now, I'm suggesting you start getting armed up. We're not playing the Sharia law up in the United States. We're going to have some FAFO around here. Y'all need to get up down in Texas and go handle it. Pam Bondi, you my girl, I need you to go down in Texas and handle it. You, Tulsi, I need you to go with her too. Kash Patel, I need you down there. Tom Holland, I need all of y'all down in Texas, because they started it in Texas. They're going to try it next in my state, and they're going to spread this crap around the whole United States. We're not playing this Sharia law crap in the United States. Everybody that sees this video, share it, like it, send it around. Everybody else start making your own videos. We need to shut this crap down now.
All right. I retweeted it also on X. Okay, so had a good conversation. It wasn't always, it's not always like, oh, touchy-feely, all good and warm and fuzzy with Jack today. Of course, it is what it is. When we talk about these things, it's just the cold, hard truth. And it's just, sometimes, I just want to leave you with a good video. So take a look at this one. Cousin77, I think, sent me this one as well. So let's take a look. I mean, how savage is that? Not only am I going to eat your vegetables, but I'm going to do it in front of your security camera. And just, make sure you see what I'm doing. I thought it was so cute. And so we retweeted that one as well. I thought it was amazing. Amazing. All right. Well, I'm not old, just older too, says he has a horrible table manners. LOL. That's right. That's a riot. All right. So I retweeted both of those videos. So if you're on X, you can also retweet them as well. She's fired up about that Sharia law, and I love it. That's what we need. We need more of that. We need more of that. So be bold, and call out what needs to be called out. Call it out as it is. All right. We hope that you enjoyed today's show. Don't forget Eve, our Godly Granny formulator, is going to be here tomorrow. We're going to be teaching you all kinds of new stuff. I've got some things that I have learned that we're going to be talking about tomorrow. I'm so excited about. But then also we have new products. It's a big release tomorrow. So we're really excited about that. They're beautiful. Y'all, beautiful. I love it. All right. We'll see you right here next time on the Michelle Moore Show.
Toxic chemicals are everywhere, even in products we've used for generations. Now, there's a replacement solution. Godly Granny. Godly Granny products are nutraceutical, clean products with purpose. All our products, like skin creams, bath bombs, lip scrubs, deodorants, and more, are free of the Godly Granny 5 Dirty Dozen list. That's 60 harmful chemicals many other companies use that you'll never find in our products. Go to godlygranny.com today. Be sure and use the discount code Michelle10 at checkout to receive 10% off your entire order.
Trying to get healthier is full of can'ts.
Come on, Grandma, come play. Come play with us, Grandma.
I can't move. So you go to the doctor.
Your body can't figure this out. So take this, and this.
Because your body can't. But is it true your body can't? Maybe your body can. All you need is a little support. Wave Watch is a wearable device that uses sound wave therapy to help your body heal itself. Studies are showing that all cells in our bodies resonate at unique frequencies, and specific sounds can stimulate them. Your body can deal with pain, so you can play hard.
Wave Watch comes with a 1-year manufacturer's warranty for defects and flaws, and you can upgrade to an additional warranty for water damage and breakage. Go to wavewatch.com. Be sure to use the discount code Michelle100 at checkout to receive $100 savings on your purchase.
Hey, Mr. Wonderful here, and I'm here with my gold guy, Dr. Mike Fulges, a silver and gold expert. Hey, Mike, what do we have here?
Today I have a few, actually 50, 2025 $5 gold American Eagles. Each is a 10th ounce of gold and is a starter coin for investors.
So this is a way people can invest. They can buy a whole bunch of coins and just hold on to them, right?
Correct. They have these in 10th ounce, quarter ounce, half ounce, and 1 ounce sizes.
Now, if they want to buy them now, wait a couple of years and sell them again so they have liquidity, can they do that with you?
Immediately. We buy millions every month back from clients.
So you really are the gold guy.
That's why we're America's gold expert.
Did you know your cell phone emits radiation that has been linked to increased risk of certain types of cancers? This is why manufacturers include hidden warnings to keep your phone away from your body. And what's worse is that children are more susceptible to the potentially damaging effects. Safe Sleep for cell phones is a case specifically designed to block radiation. Its shielding technology integrated into the case has been tested in a third-party FCC accredited lab to block over 99% of RF and 92% of ELF radiation emitted by your phone. It also functions as a stand for watching videos and comes in a magnetically detachable style for some devices. Safe Sleeve also offers anti-radiation cases for tablets and laptops and has free shipping in the U.S. plus discounted worldwide shipping is available. Go to truthtalkamerica.com today and click on the Safe Sleep banner on the home page. Use the discount code FIRST10 at checkout for 10% off your first order.
For Michelle's social media links, go to MichelleMooreShow.com.